walked away. So
Sorry.
I don't know what happened. I've just been talking to Michelle via email here and there, but Glenn, the contractor, is the one who's been the middleman.
So the contractor should have all of this. I mean, unfortunately, that's who you're paying. You know what I mean? That's who
Right,
needs
and
to,
he has not really relayed much information.
which is a shame. I mean, and to be honest, so contractors only contract with us when they can't get the permit, you know, and we've done permits for a long time. So
Okay.
we just help. Normally, we don't ever deal directly with homeowners because we pull permits for a bunch of contractors. But we have done a lot of modification and variances, and they're not. I mean, they're hard in the sense that they are tedious, but they're not. There's just a lot of work. So as long as you're okay.
Paperwork. I've had to do this 20 years ago, and back then it was a lot of paperwork. And we
Yeah.
somebody because it's a lot of running back and forth to the county.
Yeah, that's exactly what this one is. So just to be clear for tonight, because I think it's best to segment or compartmentalize what we're doing. So I, as an IOU, because it's not even part of any of this paperwork, I will look into the wall and make sure that myself or Michelle, either tonight or tomorrow morning, will at least tie back together the wall. I can tell you that everything I've done in these stacks and stacks of paper that's for the modification and the variance aren't about the wall at all.
Okay.
What this process was specifically this comment letter that we'll put on the record again that you never received from the county. It was addressed to you guys, but this comment letter is specifically on the patio, the walkway, and then the subsequent 3 little landings. That one landing that's by itself, and then I guess there's a landing to steps to a landing.
Right, which they were replacing steps that disintegrated, so I needed steps.
Gotcha. Which is fine. It's just a matter of that's got to be permitted.
Permit to replace steps.
Yeah, there is. I hear you. I won't even pass judgment on that. But
Okay.
all right. So let's. In this back and forth is actually good because it also gave people a lot of time to join. It's now just again for the record. It's 6:10. It's just you guys and me. So just to put it on verbal, it's Jeremy Clancy with Applied and Approved Permits, and the computer says Caitlin McLaughlin, but
Right,
I'm
that's my daughter.
I got that. So
myself.
so and just for my own, am I pronouncing it right? Is it McLaughlin? Is it McLaughlin?
Yes, like the McLaughlin group.
Okay. Okay, so there's nobody else, but unfortunately, just like you just said, that it's crazy that you have to get a permit for landing and steps. It's also crazy that even though it's the 2 of us, we have to read through everything that we would do if there was a room full of people. Okay. So that's what I will do. Again, I will try to keep it quick for you guys, but it's a lot of stuff. So
do I have to take notes of what you're reading, or will I get?
It's up to you. I can. Everything I have is on PDF. Like so, you're going to see a lot of stuff on screenshot that I'm going to share for the recording. They post this recording online, so at any time tomorrow, the next day, for the next 45 days, I'm not sure how long they keep it up, but they keep it up for a comment period. There's a link. In fact, that email that I sent you that has the Zoom link for tonight, there's a link to the county page that will post this once it gets posted. Now, they won't post it tomorrow because it's a county holiday, but when their next business day, they will post a link to this meeting because all of the people, as a matter of fact, I'll show you, all of the people that.
Complaints from neighbors?
No, we haven't gotten any yet, but the rule is just to advertise for this meeting, we had to write a letter that said exactly what this was for, and we had to send it to everybody within 300 feet of your property, which that was what I was getting ready to try to show you how many people that was, because all of those people would have gotten the invite to come tonight. It's not uncommon. This is everybody that is within 300 feet of your property. Okay. This is a PDF as well that you can see, but it's essentially they do a concentric circle around your property, and we usually go a little further so that we don't run the risk of leaving somebody out. And it's very common for nobody to show up to these, but we have to read through them anyway. And again, as of this moment, there has been no complaints. Okay. So now they do have a comment period after tonight because some people may be savvy and know that this is going to be posted as a link on the county site. They'll watch the whole thing instead of participate tonight, and they can still comment. So you will go through a comment period past this, but again, we're working through the variance as well, and that still has to be assigned a hearing date. So it's just good that these things can run concurrently. Otherwise, it would take even longer.
Okay.
All right, so let's read through the stuff real quick. We already said that the meeting is going to be recorded. It is a virtual platform that's accessible. It's a Zoom meeting. I don't know if you saw at the very, very first second that you jumped on, but I made sure that a second computer was able to log on too. That was Michelle. Now she's feeding the kids.
Okay.
Couple of minutes at the beginning, just making sure everybody knows how to use the platform, but it's just you guys. So if you need me, stop me. If this was 20 people, we would mute everybody and let them explain to them how to raise their hand or put something in the chat. We don't need to do that unless somebody jumps on, which
Okay.
I'm watching, and there's still only just the two of us.
Okay.
Let's see. I have to give them a list of all participants. So Caitlin, just so you know, you're part of that now. You'll be in the list of all participants. And then at a minimum, we have to read through, you don't need this copy, but this checklist. So bear with me, but I have to go through every one of these things on the record. All right, so the first one says explanation of the regulatory requirements of section 17-2-107 of the county code and why the community meeting is being held. Let me start sharing stuff. Let's do. Can you see that?
Yep, that's the plat I sent to my contractor and then sent it to Michelle.
Okay, so is the screen not changing? All you see is the plat?
It's changing. I've seen 4 different pages.
Do you see the thing that says community meetings?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so that I only pulled, we don't need to share that for video, but I do it just so that people know that I really do look up section 17-2-107 of the county code. This is the county code that just says that you have to have community meetings for certain things. I'm summarizing it. If you look right there at the first one where it says 1 and then there's a smaller lowercase I. This applies to modifications to permit direct impact to environmentally sensitive features. So that's where we got, I guess, scooped up in needing to do the community meeting because you have to do a modification. In this case, the comment letter, which unfortunately I can't believe you don't have, but I will email you as soon as this meeting is over. It says the applicant, wait, that's the variance. It says clearly indicate the location of the stone walkway and patio on the plan. Please be advised that disturbance within the 25-foot steep slope will necessitate a modification to allow disturbance to the steep slope buffer. So that's the section as to why we need a community meeting in the first place. This one, hopefully that just popped up, a sheet that says a big green notice across the top. That's just the current guidance. It's basically an ad hoc memo from Anne Arundel County that says, and you can read it, that says that because of COVID, we don't have to do this in the community, at least for the right now, and however long that they extend this. These community meetings, as per the real section of the code, is held virtually.
Okay.
All right. Let's do name and location of the project. So this is residential. I should tell you that too. Modifications and or community meetings in general were originally, they were really for like when there's large developments or something, a neighborhood coming in, or it's not exclusive to that, but that it's almost written around the idea that they're letting the area or the community know that we're going to be building another 3 streets with 10 more homes. And that's not the case here. So some of these things are a little weird that they apply to you. They just apply because of what we just read. So there's really no name of this project other than McLaughlin. It's not like we have a subdivision that we're putting in, so I don't have a name for that. But we will say for the record that the location is an existing single-family dwelling at 312 Rayford Drive. Rayford is Rayford Drive in Pasadena, Maryland, 21122. And just for good measure, on the video, I'll just read the actual project itself. So this was already submitted. So we are seeking, and this is also what your neighbors got. We are seeking a modification to section 17-6-403. That's written in your comment letter. So you'll have that section if you need to refer to it, which states that disturbance within the 25-foot steep slope will necessitate a modification to allow disturbance to the steep slope buffer. This modification request is to allow an existing 12-foot by 29-foot irregular shaped, meaning 12 by 29 is at its largest point, irregular shaped open patio on grade with a connected 3-foot by 28-foot walkway on grade to be allowed to remain in place. Also existing are 3 open landings and steps down to the patio. One landing is 3-foot by 6-foot with steps straight to the landing or patio. The other is a 4-foot by 4-foot landing with steps down to another 4-foot by 4-foot landing and subsequent steps to grade. As stated, these structures are existing. The area behind the existing single-family dwelling are flat and level, but are within the 25-foot steep slope buffer, thus necessitating the modification. Pending building permit for this project is B0239438. The tax map for the subject property is 24. There is no block, and the parcel number is 411. This is known as lot number 5 in the Oscar C. Hook subdivision. Any questions or statements on anything I just read?
Nope.
Awesome. All right, number 3, whether or not the, wait, let me check and make sure nobody's jumped on. Nope, still awesome. All right, whether or not the project is a public capital improvement project or a privately proposed project. It is not a public capital improvement project. It is a private residence, single family dwelling existing. And again, based off of what the contractor thought to be true, the improvements themselves are also existing. So nothing is actually proposed. Again, previous conversation at the beginning of this meeting between you and I, the wall is, but that's not part, there was no comments on the wall.
Okay.
All right, number 4, existing and proposed ownership of land. It is again privately owned, and as per tax records, the owner number 1 is Kevin E. McLaughlin trustee, and number 2, Penny J. McLaughlin trustee. Is that correct still?
Yes, but I own it by myself now.
Okay. Did that change somewhat recently?
It changed back in March of this year because my
Oh, yeah.
dad passed away.
I'm sorry to hear that. And that makes sense. It'll take over a year before tax. So I don't know if you're familiar with the State Department of Assessments and Taxation,
Nope.
but that is a public record. So it'll probably take every bit of a year for that to get updated. So,
Okay.
but I'm glad you said that for the record.
Yeah, might be
I'm
important.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's horrible.
Okay.
Zoning of the property, including any zoning overlays. The zoning of the property it's an R2 zone with Anne Arundel County. There are no additional overlays. Whether or not the property is in the critical area, and if it's in the critical area, what is the critical area designation? It is in the critical area, and the critical area designation is LDA, which for Anne Arundel County stands for Limited Development Area. Means nothing for you yet. Once we go for building permit, and this can be off the meeting or some other time, we can explain this to you. The Critical Area Commission will have comments on impervious surface, and they usually, when you're doing it from scratch, they make sure that you don't create a lot of runoff. Again, all of your stuff is existing, so it's going to be a little unique. You're not going to put up a silt fence for an existing patio, in other words.
Does that probably make me do more landscaping, you think?
It depends on how much is on the property. So they could make you add shrubs or bushes, because if you're doing this from scratch and you're not, and you're getting a permit before you do the work, they look at your existing impervious, your proposed impervious, they figure out if you're going over a specific percentage, and then they tell you if you need to do some sort of replanting plan.
So they won't make me tear up the patio.
It would take, I mean, that's technically always a possibility, but I think it would take an awful lot for them to make.
Okay.
I personally, in 25 years of running permits, have never run into that. I will never tell you never, but I have never run into that problem.
Okay, because they did permit a retaining wall facing the water like 15, 20 years ago.
Okay. Well, they would have looked at environmental features then too. So the slopes would have still
And
existed.
then they came back like 5 years later and told us we had to plant some trees, so.
Yeah, so replanting is is common, especially in Anne Arundel. So that's possible, but they'll take in the totality of the lot. So, you know, if you've planted anything since you've put the pad in, they'll be able to see that when they look at the lot.
Okay.
So, all right, number 7, location of all environmental features on the site as listed in the sketch plan and preliminary plan checklist, which that's for developments, and whether those features were taken from mapped resources or were field delineated. See if I can share some more here. So the only environmental feature that is in play here is the steep slopes. Do you have a topography map on your screen?
Is that considered?
Is it showing everything on your screen?
I see a map with dark brown and gray lines.
That's it. Let me get rid of some things. Let me see if I can clear up some stuff.
The yard doesn't really slope that much, so I don't know why they're calling it a steep slope.
So actually it plays directly into what this one's saying. It says whether those features were taken from mapped resources or were field delineated. In this case, it's a mapped resource, meaning it's based strictly off of Anne Arundel County's maps. This is the maps that live with Anne Arundel County and the map room. So this came from Anne Arundel County, hence you can see the seal at the bottom left. And we have 2 of these. The one that you're looking at here is kind of zoomed out. It shows a lot of your neighbors. Those dark lines by the water are what's called topography lines, and they indicate slope or changes in topography.
Yeah,
The person who sent this to
retaining
me
wall
sent,
is, I guess.
I'm sorry?
That's probably where the retaining wall is.
It's exactly right. And if you look, so they sent me a zoomed in one, and you can see that the darkest of those lines are closer to the water. And the way that topography works is the closer the lines are together, the more steep it is. So when those lines are spread really far apart, then it's indicating that it's fairly flat. If you look right behind your house, you go a good little distance before you even hit the first line. So from a mapped resource, you can see that, yes, your slopes start as you get closer to the water, not directly behind the house.
Correct.
But
Yeah.
they don't just start the steep slopes at the slopes. The environmental feature has what they call a buffer. So even beyond where the slopes are, into the flat area, there is a buffer. They don't want you to get right on top of the slope and start building. So they instill or instate this 25-foot buffer, like a setback. They want you to stay 25 feet away. From what I could tell, again, based off of maps, the patio, your stuff is not in the slope. The walkway heads towards the slope, but your stuff is not in the slope. It's in the buffer, which is not, that's common. So in this case, to answer number 7, your environmental feature, quote unquote, is from a mapped resource, and we got these from the county.
Okay.
This one you can maybe help me with. So it does not have to be specific, just in general, try to help me with. It's number 8 says location of forest, individual specimen trees, and priority forest areas. Now, you have 0 forest areas, definition of forest areas on your lot. But specimen trees are usually larger, specific type of trees. Start thinking like 14, 16, 18 inches in diameter. Ornamental stuff, small stuff doesn't really count. It will count when we go to vegetation, when we deal later with the permit and we have to show how much vegetation's on the lot for impervious surface. But I couldn't see from pictures and aerials, it didn't look like you had any major, huge trees in the rear yard.
Facing the water, they made me plant 2 big ones after the fact of the retaining wall.
Okay, are they closer to the wall?
Yes.
And if you had to guess, I'm serious. Don't run outside with a tape measure. Try to give me an idea on how big they are, like around.
They're not real big. They said the minimum of the tree when we planted them had to be, let's say, 5-inch to 12-inch diameter.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. So now do you have anything larger than that in the front yard?
No. Well,
Okay.
I planted some pine trees along the fence that
They'll be small. You're not talking 18, 24, 22, 2 feet in diameter.
the pine trees
Mm-hmm.
along the fence line, yeah, they're 8 feet tall.
But what about around, like the trunk?
They're probably 4 feet around.
Nope.
The trunk itself, yeah, is probably only like 5-inch diameter.
Okay, perfect. That's what that's usually what they use as a point of reference to figure out a specimen tree. So like
Okay.
like the Christmas tree that we just got is not just got, we got it in time. My kids would kill me, but
Yesterday.
it was way too big. It was way too big for my living room. And yet the trunk still is a normal, regular Christmas tree trunk. So we're not
Okay.
talking like you go outside and you have a 2-foot diameter tree.
Right,
usually
it's not
go-
a 200-year-old tree.
Right. Okay. Right. Exactly right. Okay. Perfect. So that's number 8.
Does
Number
that help in my favor, having pine trees there?
Well, it will, again, when we go to the impervious review for permit, for when this is all over, it will. This particular question is more asking it in the opposite way. They want to know if there's forest or trees that you're going to have to cut down or take away to put this project in. Again, we've already said on here that.
No, there were no trees in the way.
Right. Yeah. So the other stuff is more for me to know for when we get the impervious or when we deal with the permit on the back end.
Okay.
Description of any single lot residential projects. Again, so these next 9, 10, and 11 are really for development projects, but we're still going to read them because they don't apply. So number 9, it is not a new single lot. It's an existing single residential lot. And again, for the record, it is specifically strictly for the patio, the walkway, and the landing and steps, not for a new house. Number 10 does not apply. It says description of proposed multi-unit lot residential projects. We have no multi-unit or lot residential projects in this patio, landing and steps, and walkway. And same thing with number 11. Number 11 says description of proposed non-residential or mixed-use projects. So, I mean, they're talking commercial stuff. Again, existing single-family residence with an existing patio on grade, walkway on grade, and 3 landing steps, small in nature. And I keep going back, by the way, just for your knowledge, calling them landing and steps because, you get bigger. Some people, you can't call a 10 by 10 a landing, that's a deck. But in this case, they are landings and steps. They are specifically subservient to the steps.
The doorways, yeah, the doorways.
Yep.
Facing the water.
All right, number 12, for residential or mixed use projects, the impacted schools and whether or not they are open or closed. Again, this is just for us in this meeting, but you can clearly tell that that one is clearly aimed at putting in a new neighborhood, and they want to know what schools will be impacted by that neighborhood, which obviously does not apply here, but I still pulled it up just to cross our T's and dot our I's. So there's your lot, and you can see this is from Anne Arundel County's website itself, the school system. So the schools that would serve your lot are Lakeshore Elementary, Chesapeake Bay Middle, and Chesapeake High School. Chesapeake High School is where I went, by the way. I grew up in Pasadena.
Oh, funny.
Yeah, I grew up in Chesterfield.
So you know
And
this area well.
I even pulled up their current list, 2021, says at the top, current list of open and closed schools. There's Lake Shore, it's open. There's Chesapeake Bay Middle, which is open. And there's Chesapeake High, which is open. Completely irrelevant to this application, but we pulled it up anyway. Okay, the type of, I need you for this one. Type of proposed water and sewer service. So again, for the record, it's not proposed, it's all existing, but I actually could not tell. Are you on well and septic or public water and public sewer?
Well and septic.
All right, perfect. All right, so on the record, that is well and septic, that is private, not public. And again, it's existing. Number 14, proposed impact to each environmental feature and a list of modifications that will be required for impact to each environmental feature. Some of this stuff is redundant, but the environmental feature is steep slopes. It's only to the buffer, 25-foot buffer, and that is out of 17-8. Standby, that's the variance one. It is 17-6-403. Development within 25 foot of steep slopes. There's no impact, it's existing. That area is completely flat, so there was no impact when it was installed. And it can be evidenced from a site visit. Oh, and do you see the site plan now? You have that up?
I see a drawing with the yellow highlighted area.
Okay, so it should be yellow and green. So, and I know it's small.
There is some green, it's very small, yes. So that's my yard.
Yes, don't make fun of my art. So all that
Okay.
was an attempt to try to show the difference between the patio on grade, yellow, the walkway
Okay.
on grade, which is yellow, and then the landing and steps at two different areas.
Right.
And this is per our instructions anyway to offer the just checking participants. We still have only you and I. To offer the site plan. So anybody that needed to see where the project is on your property, they can see it. And we also have to show a vicinity map. So this is a blown out view. You see that as well?
Yep.
Of the area as to where you're at and the vicinity as to where you're at. So that is one of our requirements. Okay, number 15, any proposed mitigation to offset impact to each environmental feature. So this is a tricky one because there is no proposed impact because this is existing. I would say if we had done this when the permit was necessary and we were putting this meeting together for proposed patio, we would offer that whatever the county felt needed to be done for impervious mitigation. So if they said that you had to plant 7 bushes, they take into account that you already have X number of vegetation on the property. But if they come back and say you need to plant 7 bushes or you need to put up silt fence or whatever, I mean, you either get your modification turned down or you say, then that's what we will do. In this case, it's unique because all of that's existing. So it'll really be up to their determination of impervious versus pervious because there's no impact to the steep slopes at this point. The patio's in, the landing and steps are in, the walkway is in. There was obviously no erosion down to the water's edge. So there was no impact and it's existing. So I don't know if they're going to request anything at this point. I mean, it would be obviously silly to request it, but they could make you do some replanting on the back end.
Okay, and is it noted anywhere that there's grass all around the patio
so they don't usually count grass. They're really looking at, I mean, and they can be small, but they really are looking at some sort of vegetation. So bushes, shrubs, trees, and they'll usually give you an offset. It's up to you. Like when you said that they made you put in two trees, every comment letter I've ever seen offers up both. So they'll say you need to put in 9 shrubs or 2 trees.
Yeah, have to put in shrubs too, I think.
Okay. Yeah. So they'll offer that up. But again, that all counts. So even the trees that you did for the retaining wall by the water, those 2, right. Those 2 trees still count, in your favor now. So that we may not run into that. I don't want to, get worried about that yet, but we may. But that'll be late. Like we won't know that until after the modification's approved, the variance is approved, and we are almost at the point of walking out of there with a permit. Like that's when that'll come up. So we'll keep you posted on that. We do have to figure out why you didn't get this comment letter because you'll get another one when this stuff is approved. So I want to make sure that the mail is getting to you, but I'll deal with that on the back end. All right. Number 16, list of any other known modifications that are needed for this project. There are none. Again, I will say for record, we are getting a variance. The variance is to section 17-8-702, paragraph B, paragraph 1, which is the 100-foot buffer modified area, specifically for the walkway. But there are no other modifications needed, and that is not because of an environmental feature. And then it says number 17, any other relevant information of note, which I have none, but I would open it up here to all of our participants to see if there are any other pieces of relevant information that you would like to add. I know that seems odd when there's no other participants, but
I don't know what else to add.
So I mean, I really don't think you need any. I will again just show the site plan for good measure. Again, it's pretty straightforward. You had a contractor that thought that there was no permit needed, whether that was right, wrong, or indifferent. We know it was incorrect, but whether he should have known or shouldn't have known, it's hard to say. I believe that contractors are supposed to know. So it is what
that people build and then go back and get a permit for
all the time. It is it's one of the things that first got us into business. It's all the time thing. And yeah, I'd say it's 50-50 of there's plenty of times that it's completely innocent and plenty of times that it's not, but it doesn't really matter. for the most part, the county isn't even looking for whether or not it was in it or not. They just want to get the permit, you know, whether it's on the front end, back end, they just want it permitted so that you have
Okay.
legal work. And I'm telling you, I'm not, this is just a professional opinion because I don't work for the
Right.
county, but you don't have a huge ask. You know, you didn't put like a 600 square foot 2-story addition on the water side of your property
Right.
and decide not to permit it. You know what I mean? You've
Right.
got a patio
It's a
on the
small
ground.
patio.
You have a walkway that's on the ground. And the best thing you could have done for me was the landings and the steps are small. They're very small. It's not like you went with huge decks. So
If I had built a deck, that would have been even worse.
it would have been more of an ask. I wouldn't say it would be
Okay.
worse. It would just be more of an ask because it's
Okay.
harder at that point you build a 10 by 20 deck. It's harder to explain that you had no idea that it needed a permit. You know what I mean?
Okay, and that's, okay.
So, but it is what it is. You know, again, we do these all the time. I think that yours is not a completely, weird one. Yours is normal. And I don't
Okay.
foresee a lot of problems. There's always speed bumps. If there weren't,
Right.
this would be the easiest process and everybody would do it themselves. So there's always
Right,
speed bumps, but let us hit those. Just for good measure, again, for the computer and the recording. It's 6:39, so this went 40 minutes long, and still there's just the 2 participants, so we had no one showed up, which I'm not surprised with, but I will get these minutes typed up. We'll get everything submitted